Hey everyone, this is Car RayRob.
Where I'm Ray,
And I'm Rob.
and this is our podcast. Say hello to my little film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, everyone, we are back with a 5th week Kids Edition episode of Say Hello to My Little Film.
This is becoming a tradition for our channel.
The first one went so well, we had to do it again. And you know what that means, everybody? That means back in studio, live and in person, is Mr. Kitty Kaiju himself.
My ex-wife still misses me, but her aim is getting better.
Ho ho!
Shots fired, literally.
He is. He's very mature for his age. His ex-wife. He's got multiple ex-wives, apparently.
Her aim is getting better.
But this week, I have brought something very special for this episode. Last episode we did this, Ray and I came with a movie that we had both seen, both loved as kids, and we wanted to show to Mr. Kitty Kaiju. Now, this time around, I'm going to change things up a little bit.
You've got permission. I'm giving you permission to do this.
This one time.
Suspense.
Exactly. I have brought a movie that neither Ray nor Mr. Kitty Kaiju has ever seen before, which actually has made me question why Ray and I have been friends for as long as we have.
What is it? Howard the Duck? Wait, no, never mind. That's not a kid's
Oh,
movie.
World
That
War
movie's
III,
horrible.
shots fired. World War III is
Howard
starting.
the Duck is horrible.
It is not. That is a lie.
We need to ready the garrison. Get the cannons ready.
Mr. Kitty Kaiju can attest that Howard the Duck is a classic.
Well, will he say this next movie is a classic? I'm not so sure.
We're going to have to find out.
Well, if I do say so myself, what do you got?
What do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
Well, what I've got is a movie that has a very interesting distinction along with another movie that I know all three of us love, and that is Tron. But that is not the movie we're watching.
I love Tron.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Great movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to be totally honest. Tron Legacy is not great. I much prefer the original.
That you are not alone in that opinion. But this movie shares the distinction of being one of the earliest films to have a really extensive use of CGI.
CGI.
Exactly.
How old is this movie?
This is the 1984 sci-fi film The Last Starfighter.
CGI in 84? Did they even have C or G or I back then?
Well, this was 2 years after Tron, so they actually were able to improve a little bit on what they had done in Tron in The Last Starfighter.
Okay. Seems still pretty old, though.
Well, yeah.
I know I've heard of The Last Starfighter. I just don't remember ever being exposed to it. I don't remember like seeing it on TV a lot. I don't know.
I don't know how that's even possible. That is absolutely blows my mind. But The Last Starfighter is about Alex Rogan. He's a teenager who lives kind of out in the sticks in this kind of trailer park situation. And at their little common area, a new arcade game is installed. And one night he goes and just blows away the high score.
Relatable.
Exactly. Mr. Kitty Kaiju has been there before. And so it's kind of a big deal. All the residents come and they watch him do it, and it's just like a really big experience.
Popularity.
Exactly. And then he finds out that this machine isn't just a video game.
He's killing real aliens.
No, but it
Oh.
is a recruitment tool for an intergalactic war that nobody on Earth knows anything about.
Sounds like War Games, but a friendlier version.
Kind of. But yeah, this is a great movie. Like I said, it's got some interesting effects. They were able to, like I said, kind of improve a little bit on Tron. But I always loved this movie as a kid, and I really think you both are going to enjoy it.
Thanks for taking 30 years to expose me to it, Rob. Real good friendship there.
Oh man, I say again, this is on you, man. That's not on me.
It's the fresh experience, the new experience. His brain is altering and molding, each little line contorting, and yeah, new experience. That's the point, guys.
My brain might not have been ready for this when I was a kid, but probably ready for it now. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. You know what we call this? our fresh perspective on a retrospective review.
We don't say that enough.
We don't say that enough because that is exactly what we do here on Say Hello to My Little Film.
Has a nice ring to it too. I
Exact-
do think that should be one of your catchphrases. Besides, like be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Yeah.
It is one of our catchphrases. We just forget.
We
it.
just forget. We're old and we forget stuff. But I'm hopeful you will not forget this movie.
Yes. I really don't know what the experience will be for this. Yeah.
You excited? Nervous? What do you think? Are we gonna go 2 for 2? Is your dad gonna pick 2 movies that you have to admit to liking?
I mean, I do think I'm going to like it. I usually like the intergalactic shootout, intergalactic alien war, stuff like that. I like sci-fi wars like that. I like that kind of stuff. So I do think I will like it, but the off-putting fuzz of the 1980s movies, that might be enough for me not to like it, honestly.
Yeah, you might not dig the graphics. We'll have to see. Well, then I say that we pause the podcast so that me, Kay, and the rest of the audience can go watch it. Audience out there, if you haven't seen The Last Starfighter yet, just like me, do what I'm talking about. Pause the podcast. Go check it out. Come back, unpause the podcast, and listen to what me and Kay have to say about our first viewing experience for The Last Starfighter.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
All right, everyone, we're back from fighting Zur and the Kodan Armada.
Poor Zur. Actually, we lost track of Zur.
We did. Yeah, that's true. We did lose track of
Guess
Zur.
there
What
was-
happened to him?
They were setting up a sequel that we have not got to yet, I guess.
Apparently, I never really thought about that until this moment. That is true. Wow.
What would it be? The Last Starfighter? Revenge of Zur?
Maybe.
Not The Last Starfighter anymore. He's
Yeah.
built up his army.
Yeah, but it's such a great setup for a movie, just in general. This idea of, this kid plays a video game, it finds out it's a test. I feel like that's something all kids kind of dream of. It's like they play all these video games, and they hope, they dream that those skills can lead them to something bigger. Mr. Kitty Kaiju, if you played a video game and it turned out that was some kind of a test, an alien came to Earth to recruit you to fight in some intergalactic war, would you go?
It's an interesting question. Because if I was in Alex Rogan's position, where, I was the only starfighter, maybe not, but, anywhere else, yes, definitely, absolutely.
There you go. But he wasn't the first at first.
No, yeah, there was supposed to be a little squadron, but luckily he left them high and dry because otherwise he would have got blowed up.
Right? It was the one bright side of quitting.
Quitting works, people. Quit whenever you want.
That makes me feel so much better about so many decisions I've made in my life.
But then you got to
There
go
you
back.
There's the lesson.
But then you got to go back, because that's the thing, is after you quit and everybody gets wiped out, then you got to go
Only
back.
if assassins come to kill you. Then if not, you'd have been fine.
That's true. But yeah, I think, like I said, the story, at least for me, I thought is good. It's solid. I think it's something that a lot of kids can get behind. I know I did when I was a kid. Like I said, I watched the hell out of this movie. So, but since you never did watch it as a kid, and Mr. Kitty Kaiju has never seen it, Ray, what did you did it grab you the way that some of those other movies did from that era?
I definitely see the funness of the hook for
Yeah.
sure. This, like you said, it's something that you'd be like, yes, I want to be Alex Rogan. I want to, I want to go, do this. I can see myself playing Madden, being like the Tampa Bay Bucks asked me to be a head coach because I won a lot of Madden games or something when I was
Right.
a kid. So you can definitely translate that into your own thoughts. So yeah, I think the hook was very solid. It's a great starting point for a movie for sure.
Yeah.
You were saying like kids always want to be Alex Rogan. You know who I would not want to be in this movie?
Who?
The robot synthetic
Beta?
thing.
Beta.
Yeah, Beta. He is new to these gland games.
The gland games are hard even for humans. So for a machine, I couldn't even.
Yeah, you got to
imagine.
pick that up really quick. So, yeah, Beta was kind of the sacrificial lamb. I kept like kind of questioning why we were going back to Beta. I'm like, what purpose is this serving the story? But they kind of invent one enough where he had to like end up stopping the like relay information for
Yeah.
letting them know that there was one more starfighter.
Yeah.
A little
There's some good gags,
loosey goosey,
though.
but yeah,
There's some good gags, with him having to figure out how to be a human. I think that's kind of. It's almost like an interesting sub story within the story.
Lewis, go back to sleep, or I'll tell Mom about your Playboys.
Exactly.
Now, see, we could have just followed Lewis. I actually thought Lewis would have been way more interesting myself.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that, but like I said, this idea of like a robot trying to be human, especially during that era of filmmaking, I do think was like a bit of a thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like something that people were kind of exploring. But I appreciated
And actually, a little callback to like a little like body invasion of the body snatchers ish when you kind of saw Beta like turning into
Yeah.
Alex. It kind of looked like the little pods a little bit.
that part always, I'm not gonna lie, freaked me out as a kid. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like the combination of the
It's
music.
ugly. We
and-
don't like looking at ugly things.
I mean, and then there is that. It was freaky looking, but that with the music, I always remember. I'm not gonna lie. There was sometimes I would close my eyes at that part when I was
Yeah,
a kid.
it was just like it kind of looked like that weird shriveled thing from the last Harry Potter movie. I forgot the name of it. The Deathly Hallows.
Yep.
Yeah, Deathly Hallows. Where it's like
Oh.
under that thing, and it's just like
The dead Voldemort.
Yeah, dead
Or
Voldemort.
like
yeah.
that part, the
Mhm.
piece of Voldemort. Yeah.
Yeah,
I get
it
that.
kind
I
of
can
reminds
see
me
that.
of that, and it's like slimy. It's like a life form trying to survive, but epically failing time and time again.
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely see that. One character that it had been a little bit, not super long time, but I would definitely since before Mr. Kitty Kaiju was born, I think that I had watched The Last Starfighter.
Sure.
But there was always one character that I really did love, even when I watched it as a kid, and when I watched it throughout the years before, and I still love it to this day, and that is Centauri.
The Music Man.
The Music Man, exactly, Mr. Robert Preston himself. Like I love it. I know he's not in the movie a ton, but I love when he's in it. Like his whole character, the vibe of his dress, and the way that he interacts with people, like it's like this like lovable con man almost.
Yeah,
It's like
pretty
intergalactic
much just
con
like
man.
the Music Man. Like
Right.
Robert Preston just plays a swindler every movie he's in.
Yeah,
He's just like Grunkle Stan from Gravity Falls.
Kinda.
He's a lovable con man, kind of.
yeah. No, I could definitely see that. But yeah, and it's and they make I still get bought into his death, quote unquote. Obviously, he doesn't die. You find that out
Yeah.
by the end. But like that death scene, I don't know. It still hits me every time.
I
even
thought the
today.
death scene was pretty good for like this type of movie, but then I feel like if I watched it on a rewatch, it wouldn't hit me because like I know he just turned off. Like
Right.
he's not dead. He just got turned off. So
And that's
I
fair.
kind of didn't like that they brought him back. But again, I think they were definitely trying to set up a sequel because
Yeah,
it's
it
like
does feel
you
that
feel
way.
like Zerv escapes. Centauri's back. Like okay, we've got the makings of a sequel now.
Right.
But it just
Alex
for
is
whatever
going back
reason,
to space.
Yeah,
to
with
fight
Maggie,
with
yes.
Greg.
and so for whatever reason, just that apparently never worked out.
Yeah.
Or Alex and Maggie have a kid, and Lewis is an uncle, and he's like 12.
Maybe that
There
would
we go.
definitely be part of the story. They have to come back to Earth. They get Lewis, take him to space too. That'd be a lot of fun. I bet that kid would really enjoy space.
What were the name of the I guess the Rilo is the planet they kind of go
Rylos, yeah.
to, Rylians or something. I kind of thought it was funny that like the species of Rylians were basically like 50-year-old white guys. Like that was the alien race. Like they
What-
just were all bald,
What's-
white-haired old guys.
What's
I'm
with
like
that hairline?
it's cool there. Like I would be the stud there.
Bro, the hairlines, they go back to singularity.
It's like yeah, they have to be like 6 or 7 inches back.
Yeah. But it's funny because another thing that I really liked about this sequence, so, Alex obviously gets basically kidnapped by Centauri, taken to Rylos to, be recruited into the...
He walked right into the stranger who offered him Candy's van, basically. It was horrible.
You definitely don't do
Quitting
that,
work,
kids.
go into strangers' vehicles. Like, this
Yeah.
movie gave a lot of bad messages for kids. No wonder you liked it, Rob.
Yeah, like a PSA for all of our small child viewers. If you see some random old, basically bald white guy pull up to you in a futuristic looking DeLorean thing, and he tells you that you are recruited, and you don't know what you're recruited into, and he tells you to get in his car, maybe don't get in his car, but hey, there was a whole movie about that, so yeah, go on ahead.
Worked out for Alex.
Exactly. But one of the funniest parts about that sequence when he finally gets to Rylos and they find out like, oh well, it's like there wasn't supposed to be a machine on Earth, and all these things. It's funny to me how in these movies where there's always like these intergalactic battles going on, or whatever, that Earth is always on the do not call list.
Yeah.
It's like they're
Can
not
you blame
him? No, I can't, which I think is what makes it so funny.
Yeah, it's like Hitchhiker's Guide. Just like, yeah, we're going to build a highway here instead of having your planet
Right.
exist.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a bit because of our self-destructive nature, but hey, recruit the cats.
There you go. They might have been really helpful in this war.
But one thing that I have to give Centauri credit for, speaking of Earth being, a giant garbage can essentially to these people, is like he knew all about our history. He knew about Christopher Columbus.
Right.
He knew about the Wright brothers. I was like,
Mhm.
man, you know what? This guy has studied our history. If he thinks that we are worth exterminating, then he's got to be right.
Sure. Did you say exterminating?
Yeah.
Exterminate.
Exterminate.
But he's kind of like Ron's dad from Harry Potter. There are numerous characters in a lot of media that I've watched that aren't human, but they're so fascinated with humans.
Oh,
Right.
sure.
Like Gus from Owl House.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the CGI, because I know that's something we kind of
Yeah,
brought up in the
sure.
before section. That's a big part of this movie. So, Rob, you start. Like, did you think the CGI was like really cool back when you were a kid, or what do you remember?
Sure. I mean, again, it was one of those things where you'd never really seen it before. And I obviously, by the time I probably watched the movie, obviously by the mid to late 80s, I had seen it. And there wasn't really any CGI at that point. And then, through the 90s, it became more prevalent, obviously up to, say, Jurassic Park or something like
course.
that. But, I think, looking at it now, I'm gonna actually, this might be maybe a little bit of a hot take. I don't know, maybe not.
Hot take alert!
I think it actually aged pretty well for when it was made. I think for me, the biggest thing, I think the ship designs are solid. I think they're still solid to this day. I think,
Definitely agree with that.
yeah, I think the biggest issue for me is the texture mapping, because it's that very, stark colors. It doesn't seam like it's
Yeah,
real
it's like
because of that.
smooth.
Yeah, super smooth.
It's like when you see documentaries about Pixar movies and you see the god awful looking animation before they add like the shadows and stuff.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah. Texture mapping is a lot in CGI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff that they were still trying to figure out. I think I definitely agree. I thought a lot of the designs were cool. I guess, kind of being a Star Wars fan, and Star Wars obviously made before this. I think I'm like, maybe the CGI was a little overzealous for the time, because modeling was still so good. And especially
Sure.
with space, you can do the lighting better. Like the ships, as cool as they were designed, I think if they did models of them, would probably been cooler to me.
Well, yeah, but again, this is
Like-
where the industry was heading at that time, so
Yeah.
that's also part of it.
I do like the ship design in Last Starfighter more than a lot of ship designs in Star Wars. That is a hot take. You can say hot take alert.
Hot take alert.
Yeah, but the texture mapping of the cave scene.
Yeah, the cave was pretty terrible.
Yeah, but so I think the stuff in Star Wars, I think the world building in Star Wars is a bit better, of course, because it's a large, massive movie series in
Mhm.
popularity, and also the planets and locations just look better
Sure.
because like they don't use primitive CGI.
Mm-hmm.
So when you watch a movie like this, Kay, or do you feel like the CGI is when it's at this, I don't want to say bad, but like at its infancy stage, which kind of means bad, but it's like of the time.
Yeah.
Does it hold your interest, or is it distracting because you're just like, oh, that looks bad, and does it take you out of the movie?
Usually I focus about 3 seconds on that looks terrible, and then I just go back to the movie.
Yeah, so it's not too big of a speed bump.
Yeah. But with your point of view, Ray, I am curious if you had seen it as a kid, if you might
Sure.
think of it that way. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like when you're a kid, like I just thought, whoa, like this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this before. But now you are seeing it after like such advancements in
I'm an
CGI.
old, cynical man now, so
Right.
of course I'm gonna look to poke holes at something. But yeah, there was just a couple shots where I was like, yeah, you know what, it looks like it's a good video game graphic, which of course the movie's kind of based off the video game, so in that way it kind of works.
I think
but
that's
it kind of
exactly
looks
part
more
of it.
like video game than it looks like a movie, like
Right.
quality.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I do think that's probably why they decided to go that direction too, because they were able to tie it directly into that Starfighter video game that you saw in Starlight Starbright trailer park. But I'm glad, even though they did kind of, the CGI effects with some of the bigger set pieces, which to be fair, there weren't a ton. It's
Yeah,
like
no.
they did kind of use it somewhat sparingly. I'm sure part of it was because of like the time consuming element of it being that early in CGI and kind of, the hours of putting it together. But, I appreciate some of, really the practical gags that they did, especially when it came to Alex and Beta, some of the double body work and stuff like that. Or like one of my favorite scenes still is when Beta has to fix his ear and like takes his head off.
Yeah,
Like,
that was good.
That whole desk sequence
Go back
is
to bed,
great.
Lewis, or I'll tell Mom about your Playboys. Okay.
That is a separate scene.
That is a separate
I think,
scene, though.
but yes.
That's the one where they're in there together. So you're right.
He says you're having a nightmare.
That's
this is the worst
one with
nightmare of your
the head
life.
on the desk is when he tells him
Yeah,
he's having
yeah.
a nightmare. Go back.
You're
to sleep.
having a terrible nightmare.
Yeah.
Go back to sleep.
Yeah. So I do think I appreciate that while they were trying to push the boundaries on those space sequences, that they still kind of stuck to the good old fashioned practical effects for some of those other stuff.
Yeah, that stuff really works for me too. I thought that's kind of cool, and that's kind of like that's one of the things you like about some of those early 80s movies is just there's so much more creativeness because they didn't have the like let the computer do it. Like
Right.
you had to find cool
Right.
ways to do stuff, and
Sure.
so you get some of those peaks into that.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty good for what they had back then. I mean, now you can just toss whatever you want into Grammarly or ChatGPT or something, and then it, like, mixes it around like alphabet soup, and then it just, like, spews a word
Mm-hmm.
out, aka, like, the texture mapping and stuff like that, like the animation.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of the CGI artwork.
I love how when Alex is, Alex, we can talk about the character of Alex a little bit too, because,
Yeah.
he is kind of the Luke Skywalker-ish type, person here,
Definitely,
being the
yeah.
last Starfighter. But
Right.
a couple things, like, I really liked, his relationship with Grigg. That's the
Yeah.
co-pilot guy.
Yeah. I do. I
That was
did want to
cool.
get to that.
Grigg
yeah.
was great. I thought with his, like, his makeup was great. I
Yeah.
thought they did such a good job on that. Like, his mouth doesn't move perfectly, but for the expressions that they wanted him to get across, they did a really good job with it.
Yeah.
But that was cool. I love when they're training him. He's kind of giving the quick 5 minutes, like, this is how you blow things up using this plane, and he's got but this is the do not touch button. Like, we will never use this
Right.
button. And of course, to save the day, you have to use that button.
It is the giant red button. So, you are the last Starfighter, our only hope against this crazy galactic empire that we want to blow up. So here's, your run-of-the-mill weapons, but do not press that giant red button. I know it looks so enticing, but don't press it under a glass covering that says, do not press. You could easily, open the latch and open it and press it, but just don't press it, even though it's like the ultimate weapon. Just don't press it, man.
Yeah.
He presses
And that's
it.
the one thing you want to do. It's the only thing you want to do is press that
He
button.
presses it and wins the day,
Yeah.
of course.
I appreciate how he referred to Greg as a gung-ho iguana.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite lines in the movie. I'm stuck out here with a gung-ho iguana.
They have a couple of moments. Like Greg has one, and then I think it was I don't know if he was the diner owner, but the one guy like who Alex was helping like fix the antenna.
Yeah.
Oh,
mhm.
Where
yeah,
they
yeah.
have that moment, like they have the super wise man advice that comes out of nowhere, but is like
Yeah.
directly related to the plot. He's like, Alex, are you
Otis, that's the guy's name.
Otis.
Otis.
He's like, Alex, are you having a good day? He's like, I'm having a bad day. He's like, well, Alex, one of these days you might have to take a chance on something. Like totally just out of the blue, like
Right.
inspirational speech that like, all right, 5 minutes later ties perfectly. It's that aha. We call it the miracle moment
The
from the
miracle-
movie
the
Miracle,
miracle
where the
nod.
assistant coach just always had that
Mhm.
aha moment look on his face,
Mhm.
basically the whole
Mhm.
movie. And so Alex gets a couple of those. He gets one from Greg, but you gotta appreciate, you gotta work that expositioning.
I like the side characters in this movie a lot. You mentioned Greg. I think that's kind of their buddy element to it. I think is really great.
Would have been greater in the sequel.
Sure, I bet they definitely would have built on that in the sequel. I enjoyed Beta. I enjoyed Lance Guest as Beta. I thought his performance was really good. Playing that double role and having to again kind of be that machine trying to figure out to be human.
Yeah, you can always kind of tell. You never would confuse Beta for Alex. Like
Right.
he plays him different enough.
Right.
So it's good.
But then there's those Beta moments with Catherine Mary Stewart's character Maggie. I think those are great too. Where it's just that odd connection. Where there's like she just thinks he's Alex and he's not Alex.
She's just trying to have some fun with her boyfriend,
Right.
and he's not responding the right way, so
Those
she's
gland
pissed.
games, as Mr. Kitty Kaiju so aptly pointed out.
She stuck her tongue in my ear. I screamed.
And she slapped me.
And she slapped me. It's so good, and I think it's great. But I will say there is a darkness to this movie, that I do think kind of plays really well too. So like, going back to that scene we'd referenced earlier when Alex first shows up on Rylos and is kind of going through that whole sequence, and then you first meet Zur, and I remember that being very menacing as a kid. Like the projection, and then like when he tortures the spy or basically melts the face and head of the spy.
Oh yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
But were you scared of Zur because his forehead has its own magnetic field?
Yeah, because he looks like everybody's grandpa, and like he might give you a spanking or something.
That's true. If I only knew then that my co-host on this podcast would have a worse hairline. Ha!
I'm bold is beautiful.
Being bald is better than what the Zur has.
That's fair. I'll give you that.
Preach.
I'll give you
Hashtag
that.
that.
No hashtag no horseshoes.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of this interesting dynamic with Zur and then the other bad aliens. I don't know,
Krill
like the
and,
Krill or whatever.
yeah,
They actually probably could have done more there in the movie. I guess you don't need to, and you want to keep it a little crisp for this kind of movie. But
yeah.
But again, maybe this stuff they would have explored more in a sequel, because I definitely feel like they wanted to do that but never got there.
Yeah. There was definitely some interesting stuff, politically underneath the surface there. Having Zur being in control of this armada and all of that, and clearly these guys aren't really on board with it. And visually, these guys are obviously more menacing than Zur, considering he's just a Rylan.
Right.
So like I can agree that I would have liked to maybe known more, but as a kid you don't necessarily think about that.
No, as an adult though, I won't say that I thought Zur was all that menacing. I'm like, these guys are gonna kick your butt. You just look like some scrawny little nerd who just
Sure.
like wants more power.
Yeah.
Sure.
One thing that I didn't really like about the movie is that it's one movie, so they didn't have a whole lot of time for world building about like why Zur is evil and why he has this armada and why he's trying to kill everybody and why he has that weird metal thing in his head.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of the I guess the reasoning for the bad guys to be bad is kind of flat. Like, we want to go there. He's like, well, I'm the only one that can tell you how to get there. Like, all right, well, show us how to get there.
Yeah.
But why? Like, what would be the benefit of destroying the Rylands? Or I'm not really sure.
Yeah. And you're right. Like, that was probably something that I bet would have ultimately come out in a sequel if that had happened.
Yeah, you'd have to touch that up, because
I'm actually looking it up right now, and there was a potential sequel, and in fact, even as recently as 2021, they've been trying to do some sort of a sequel for it.
Are we gonna get a new Last Starfighter soon? Are
Uh,
we? Are we?
Who
Are we?
knows? At
Alex
this-
is gonna look like the Rylands. He's gonna be bald and old.
Yeah,
Oh
I think-
yeah, definitely.
it looks like
He's gonna have like a bunch of children with Maggie. Lewis is going to be like 40 something.
Yeah, it looks like in as 2012, it looks like Seth Rogen, Spielberg were interested in trying to do it.
It almost feels like at this point you'd have to start it over.
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
then rather
Yeah.
a sequel.
It does say sequel or
I mean-
remake.
I mean, hey, the first Cinderella was made in 1952, and then they made the 2 sequels in the 90s. So
That is animated though, so it's
That's
a little
true.
harder.
That is
But-
true, but that
True.
was in Disney's direct-to-video bonanza.
But with like the technology advances in just like gaming and stuff, like
Yeah.
you could make a lot of these sequences look a lot better.
But so this is a very interesting question, and this goes to both of you, but especially to Mr. Kitty Kaiju, who I know has very distinct
What's up, brother?
feelings about this, and that is so obviously Tron was
Oh,
just
I love
like
Tron.
this. I know, was just like this, where it was that early CGI.
yeah, I was
And-
just about to talk about Tron and how like if they made another Last Starfighter, they would probably have to do a reboot with like a more high-tech 3D video game.
Right, so there you go. So the question becomes, with Tron and Tron Legacy, if they did make a sequel to Last Starfighter and update the CGI graphics, would that actually take away from the movie?
I don't know. Cause like it might not if they relatively keep it similar, maybe update it to be more like with the times, you
Mhm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So like but like the thing with Tron Legacy was like so Tron and Tron Legacy didn't really have that similar of a story. You
Mhm.
know? Not really. And like Tron Legacy just didn't feel like as fun. Like in the original Tron, it was like, oh god, we gotta escape. Boom, 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 flashing lights, insert more flashing lights here. But in Tron Legacy, it's just like, I'm a brooding action hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. It kind of took that, maybe that Disney fun of the 80s and made it more gritty and real. But to be fair, that is kind of where filmmaking is at these days, especially with sci-fi movies like that.
Yeah, and then I think they're kind of seeing that that doesn't necessarily work, and they're trying to go back to maybe a funner style, but we shall see. But
Yeah.
I don't think like I could definitely see this movie being remade, and because again, if like the graphics were cutting edge then I think you'd want the graphics to be cutting edge now. I don't think you'd want
Sure.
it to look bad
Yeah.
or like hokey. Again, if you could tie it into maybe a more purposeful, like make this look like a video game but real like thing,
Yeah.
that could be cool. And I think that's kind of reasons why, like, yeah, this movie came after Tron, but maybe Tron's graphics feel better is because they weren't going for realistic. In Tron, you're
Sure.
like going for like these are things that exist in a game.
Mhm.
Where this this Last Starfighter is inspired by a game, but it's like when they're doing the car flying into space, like they're trying to make that car look as realistic as possible, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
It did for the time,
Right.
but I'm just saying, as retrospect.
Right, and I guess that's the point. You're kind of talking about miniatures and stuff like that, and I'm with you 100%. You know that. I do think there, CGI has become a bit of a crutch, especially with the way it's used now for even some of the most like anodyne things. But I guess as I said earlier, it kind of had to start somewhere. Somebody's got to be the first, somebody's got to be the second, and you gotta grow from something. And so I can appreciate it. This, if without this, we wouldn't have gotten Jurassic Park, which I do think was an immense achievement in CGI, or Lord of the Rings, and stuff that Weta is doing. I mean, they're doing amazing work and have been for decades.
Fun fact, Weta is actually a bug. It's really weird looking. Look it up on like Google or something. It's pretty weird looking, but cool looking.
It definitely makes sense why Peter Jackson would name it that.
Yeah,
though.
it's
He's
true.
that kind of guy.
I remember you taking me to see a lot of Peter Jackson movies, and I was like, this is not like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Also, Weta, like the bug, is native to the Australia, New Zealand area.
There you go. So that, again, makes total sense why he would name it that. Well, I think we've had a pretty decent, good conversation here about this movie, but to wrap up this movie, normally, like we did in the last episode, we would just be finding out if Mr. Kitty Kaiju liked The Last Starfighter. But I've got 2 questions to ask because
Oh,
I got
boy.
2 people who had not seen
Double trouble.
The Last Starfighter before this episode.
Dixie
I'm gonna
Kong's
take
double
this
trouble.
I'm going to take this one at a time, though. I'm going to take this one at a time.
Slow
So
burn.
I'm actually going to start with Ray because this episode centers around Mr. Kitty Kaiju, and he is
Save
the
the
grand
best for
finale.
last.
Save the best for last.
Yeah, we're gonna throw you to the wolves.
Oh boy.
You're getting kicked out, Ray. This
Specifically,
is
I'm throwing you
this
to
is
the
gonna
wolves
be-
because there's like nobody else
going
here.
to be Mr. Kitty Kaiju Rob before the end of this night. But to answer
What
the
do you
question, or
want?
ask the question, Ray, did you like this movie, and would you recommend it?
I like the movie fine. I guess there's a part of me that thinks like this movie may just has gotten lost to time. Like, you know
Sure.
what I mean? So I don't know. I'd be interested. I'm going to be really interested to hear what Kitty Kaiju has to think about this because I wonder if people of a younger generation can watch this movie and like enjoy it as much. There's just so many other options to watch now that have been improvements upon this. And so I think unless you go in with the understanding that like you're paying homage to a predecessor of a lot of other things, I think the concept is great. I think like the movie is fine enough. It hits all the action beats. I wish I saw it when I was a kid. I
Right.
think I would have liked it a lot. I just feel like now I watch. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's just it's of its age.
Right. So you're basically saying if you didn't grow up on it, you don't feel like you could connect with it the way that I do.
I worried if you could. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if I could say that I necessarily did. Like, I don't know if I would necessarily going to be going back to this a lot. Like, I don't, we've gone and watched some older movies that I was like, oh wow, I super did miss out on that. I saw Once Upon a Time in the West just last year, and I'm like, oh my
Sure.
god, this is my favorite Western ever. It's an old movie,
Right.
but like I can go back to that and recycle it. But I don't know if this would, because I'm like, man, there's just a lot of other fun options. Like, we mentioned like a Ready Player One, kind of before we
Sure.
talked. Like, we both read the book. I love the book. Ready Player One wasn't a great movie, but I probably would be more likely to go back and watch something like that and kind of get the same flavor here.
Sure.
So that's me. But let's hear about Kay. He is the audience that I'm talking
He is
about.
the target audience. So now is the big question, Mr. Kitty Kaiju.
I'm ready.
Did you like The Last Starfighter, and would you recommend it to your friends?
Yes, I did really like it. Would I recommend it to my friends? Maybe.
Okay.
I know that they're probably used to high-end CG,
Sure.
so
That's
they
hard.
might not like it, but I would at least recommend it to them. Great movie. Pretty like I liked it. Yeah.
Did you? What was your favorite character?
This is a popular one here.
Okay.
Beta.
Oh.
Or Lewis. Beta or Lewis.
Did you see yourself as
So
Lewis?
he likes
Is
the
that why?
Earthbound characters for a movie that's about being a starfighter in space.
Oh, granted, one of them is a robot, so that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Synthetic.
Exactly.
Like
yeah,
from
that's an
Alien.
insult, Rob.
Oh, that's true. I prefer the term artificial person. myself.
Yes, artificial person. Don't be racist to these robots.
Exactly. Bishop's gonna
Or
come out of nowhere.
synthetics.
Well, you heard it here. Ray was a mix, but Mr. Kitty Kaiju, who, to be fair, was the target audience, liked the movie, maybe would recommend it, but liked it. So as a dad, I can be proud on that front. But we'll have to see what we come up with next time because he will be back.
We
And,
have some ideas.
And we have some ideas, so we're gonna see if we go three for three because we did a bang up job with Hook.
Oh yeah, I loved Hook.
You see,
Amazing.
He loved Hook. He liked The Last Starfighter. We're gonna have to keep it going. So he will be back. So thank you, Mr. Kitty Kaiju, for giving us your time, which I
You're
know is
welcome.
very valuable.
Oh
And-
yes, definitely, especially during the summer.
You're cool with
Exactly.
coming back and doing another show, right?
Sure. Better give me my $5.
You hear to hear, folks. Mr. Kitty Kaiju is not getting paid for his next episode.
Wait, what?
Well, Rob, we are done. We're checked out on our conversation for The Last Starfighter, but the audience isn't. They have been recruited because by listening to this entire podcast, they passed the test that allows them to like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, and review the podcast. They now have the power to do that. If they leave us a 5-star review, we're going to read it live on air someday. They can also reach out to us on email at carrayrob@gmail.com and talk to us on Blue Sky at Car RayRob.
Absolutely. And by all means, share the podcast as well with your friends, families, loved ones, enemies, whoever. We are trying to grow this community, and any help we can get in that department would be much appreciated. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you're listening on, by all means, leave us a comment. Did you love The Last Starfighter? Did you love it when you were a kid? Do you still love it now? By all means, let us know. We are dying to hear about it. We will be back next week with Say Hello to My Little Film again.
We're back.
We're back, but it will be my episode, and it's going to be something real fun because it is my birthday month, and I have a new tradition that I am going to continue.
No, we're not agreed to this.
I'm going to be messing with Ray, so I'm going to give him that little tidbit now, but I'm not obviously going to tell him what we're watching, but I am going to be messing with Ray. You can count on it. We will be back in 2 weeks, though, with our July episode of A Copy of a Copy, and we will be watching one of my favorite movies, which is Casablanca.
Oh, I didn't know they made a remake for that.
Well, it's an interesting remake because it's not necessarily a advertised remake, but it is basically the same movie, and that is Barb Wire, starring Pamela
With Pam?
Anderson. Yep. So most people don't realize that it is technically, in many ways, a remake of Casablanca. So we will be exploring that angle on the remake, and I'm very excited to do that. You are not going to want to miss either one of those episodes. But until then, this is Car RayRob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, everyone. As I said, I'm going to be messing with Ray for my birthday for this month's episode of Say Hello to My Little Film. So I'm going to be recommending to him Videodrome, the 1983 David Cronenberg body horror film starring James Woods and Debbie Harry. Ray is a big Rick and Morty fan, and there's a whole Cronenberg joke in Rick and Morty that he does not get because he's never seen a David Cronenberg film before, so this is going to be his first foray into it, and I think Videodrome, it's not an easy movie to watch. Don't know if he's going to like it, but I'm super excited to find out. You are not going to want to miss it.